Welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches making the big time where they're at. I am your host, Gage Rozier. Today's episode is sponsored by TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr provides strength conditioning software to athletics programs around the country. Whether you write your own programs or want access to over 100 templates, TeamBuildr can make your program more efficient, more accountable, and smarter when it comes to measuring your team's effort in the weight room. Visit their website and start a 14-day free trial at teambuildr.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey guys, this week I had the pleasure of talking to Coach Whitney Rodden, the Director of Strength Conditioning at MidAmerica Nazarene University in Olathe, Kansas. Coach Rodden is awesome. She's working with 10 teams there. She's a one-man show, and she's just does some amazing things. And she shares a lot of that with us in this episode. And she also shares some adversity that she's went through in her personal life that's just given her a great perspective, and that perspective leads to what she teaches her athletes, and really admire her on the stuff that she's doing there at MidAmerica. And I've heard nothing but awesome things about her from other coaches. So really appreciate her coming on. I hope you enjoy the show. If you do, please share it with a coach you think might like it. And as always, hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Coach, I really appreciate you coming on with the Big Time Strength Podcast. Why don't you get us going by just explaining a little bit about your journey through strength conditioning and where you're at right now?
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate you thinking of me, and I'm excited to share about my journey in strength and conditioning. It started probably back when I was playing college ball at MidAmerica Nazarene University. Played softball there. And my strength coach, Coach Tom Cross, he encouraged me to try a weightlifting competition, Olympic-style weightlifting competition. And so I did it and fell in love with it. And ever since, I feel like I've been on a mission to share how to train properly and make sure people do things right. And so they don't hurt themselves and can perform even better. So, because I feel like I had a lot of success with it. And, when I left MidAmerica, I had an athletic training degree, but I didn't feel like I was called to do athletic training. I felt like strength and conditioning was more what I should be doing. So I had a graduate assistantship position at Kansas State University under Coach Rodden, and I had a great time there. It was a little rough at the beginning, to be honest. Being a female strength coach in the early 2000s is kind of a chore. I felt, and maybe that's just me, but it was kind of a battle a little bit. But I enjoyed my time there. I was only there for about a year, and a full-time assistant strength and conditioning position opened up at the University of Kansas, and I was able to be there for about 3 years and enjoyed my time there. And I had quite a few teams that I trained. I felt like there was a lot of turnover, and so I had to share the load with the other coaches, and so we would rotate sometimes on different teams. And so it's kind of good. It kind of prepared me for I came back to MidAmerica to be the head strength and conditioning coach and take Coach Cross's position and move forward. So, we have like 10 teams here at MidAmerica. And so, having all those exposures to different sports at K-State and KU, I feel like helped prepare me for, having everybody at MidAmerica. And so, it's been kind of crazy. So now I've been at MidAmerica for 13 years now. And, so it's been good. That's kind of where my journey's been. And at least, yes, on paper. So, yeah.
Well, that's
is there anything else you want me to add to that?
That's a lot of great experience, and I'm just curious, like what is you say like one of the toughest challenges of being a female strength coach, and we talked a little bit before we started recording about you're starting to take over football again. So what
Yeah.
are some of those challenges you have to overcome, if there are any, about
Yeah.
maybe with like a male dominated sport?
Yeah. I don't really feel like I have too many anymore. I feel like it's better, and I think part of it's my confidence in myself and demanding certain things from athletes. And it's not even necessarily anymore whether it's male or female. I see it more as just the athlete's attitude and how they conduct themselves.
Yeah.
It could be a female too,
Right.
And I don't know, I think I had to go through some of those hard times to improve my confidence, if you will. And not that I enjoyed going through those experiences, but I just think age and time, help with that. And just even in general, I tend to be hard on myself. So maybe that had a little bit to do with it too. I'm still pretty hard on myself, but I feel like, they need to listen and do what they're told, and, we'll work together. And that's, I guess, the way I see it now. And having the coaches backing is huge.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I don't have head coaches on my side, that makes it worse. And, I honestly, so I don't know if you knew this. I didn't tell you about this, and maybe you knew, but I lost my 14-month-old daughter 2 years ago.
Right.
She was hit by run over by a truck outside of her daycare, and that taught me a lot, just my perspective on life, that sometimes all this petty stuff that athletes do is not worth my stress. I've had enough stress that I don't see it as even touching what I've been through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's changed me a lot, and I try not to let those little things bug me, and I don't have time for it, so they can move aside, and I'll work with the ones that want to be worked with.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I think that's a great perspective, obviously, and have no idea what that feels like, and can only imagine. I have a 16-month-old myself, and I can only imagine the hard times you went through that, and that's just a great perspective, and what you bring to that program coming from that is really impressive. And again, I've heard nothing but great things about what you do in the culture you have, and that's kind of what we want to talk about next. Is what is the kind of the culture of your program you would say you want out of your athletes?
I think just making sure that they're showing up not only physically, on time, but mentally, and really getting the most out of their time here. And I try to really stress to them that, you may feel like you have a lot going on right now, but, when you leave here, I've had so many athletes come back and say, I wish I would have, done more in the weight room, or, I just try to tell them not to feel like that they're, not giving their full effort, and that they show up every time, no matter what is going on. They put whatever is going on in their minds at the door, and they're there to get after it for that just short amount of time that they're in the weight room. And we've recently started we started with track, but we've got some other teams we're starting to do this with. We make them check out with one of the coaches, whether it's me or one of my interns. When they check out, they have to shake hands. So they have to work on that eye contact, work on their handshaking skills, that lets us know that they finished and did everything. They weren't just trying to, sneak out of there. So that's been kind of fun doing that, creating that culture and preparing them for life. So.
Well, it's a very simple concept that not very many people are good at. So I think It's just
Yes.
shaking
And
hands with eye contact and is huge. But that's a
yes.
really easy thing we can do maybe to grow an individual that you might not usually think about. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. I don't.
So what
It's been fun.
yeah, so what the concept of this podcast is making the big time where you're at, and what is maybe a unique way that you think you make the big time where you're at there at MidAmerica.
Um, I feel like, yeah, I mean, I think, resources are limited, and I know I think that was one of the questions we might hit on later on, but when you feel like you're a little limited, you just, I feel like for me, my niche is teaching Olympic lifts correctly and being very hard on them with that, and making sure, if we can do that one thing really well, that's going to carry on for later, in other areas. And so I guess that's kind of what my big time is, and making sure that they are, can go out and show others that they can do things well and efficiently. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like when people outside of the school, like say they're training at a gym somewhere else, and they see that they, do things well, I feel like that shows a lot. And when the community notices, I think that's kind of I guess, big time thing. I don't know. I mean, trying to think of what else there would be. I don't know.
Well, I think that's a great point, because that's something I battle quite a bit, is trying to do too many things, and then we get very average at a lot of things instead of being really good at a few. And
Yeah.
that's something we decided to maybe take a step back last spring with our football guys, and just focus on these 2 or 3 things. Let's get really good at it. And we had better results than we ever had. And I think that's a great point. Yeah, I think that's a great point of just just because your stuff's limited doesn't mean you can't get really good at what you do have access to.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah.
Well, good. That's good to hear that you've been able to do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and hopefully we can keep it going. But so you talked about resources being limited. How do you fundraise? Are there any ways that you acquire additional fundraising for your department?
Yeah, we a long time ago we would do a lift-a-thon, and so we asked our athletes to come and or go and ask family, friends to sponsor them for this weightlifting meet, and we do it like a real meet. They do the snatch and the clean and jerk, and so it was kind of fun that the athletes participated in, and they got really excited about it. And then a few years ago we had to shut it down because they were we didn't want to hit up the same people multiple times for different things on campus. So
right.
That kind of pushed me into hosting. When we host the Kansas State Weightlifting Championships in the fall, my friend Anna Martin and I co-host that, and so it's a lot of fun. I mean, we have all the local weightlifters and CrossFit competitors. They come and compete in the snatch and clean and jerk. And this past spring we started doing the Missouri Valley Championships, and it's a lot of work. We have to break down our platforms. We use our main gym for our 2 platforms, and so it's kind of a pain to haul them back and forth and everything. But so that's one thing we've done to raise funds. And even then, it's not like you're not making a ton, but it's a fun event. I think a lot of people appreciate the facility that we have, and are always very excited to come here, and I always get positive feedback from it. So it's nice to have that. I've honestly thought about doing like a parents' night out thing, and then have a couple athletes from each team come and help watch kids for a little bit. And I'm pretty particular about child safety, so I make sure we had a couple right things in the path of what we're going to try to do, and just have them play, have them play a sport. I have my kids come up. Sometimes we use the facility for my kids' birthday parties, and their friends just love it. They have the whole gym. They play wiffle ball. They, dodgeball. It's fun. So I've thought about doing something like that sometime. But
that's awesome. I love that idea. It's a great idea.
Yeah. One thing we did do too was when we lost Harper, my daughter, the Adidas rep in the area, I had coached his daughter, and he just wanted to do something for us, and so he donated a bunch of shirts, and our printing guys donated the printing for the shirts so we could raise funds through that to do whatever we wanted with it. And finally, we still have a few shirts left, but we were able to at least raise enough to where we could replace 4 of our squat racks.
Awesome.
And one of those racks has Harper logo on it. So it's, I wanted something to show our athletes that even when you do have something horrible happen, that you can have some positive things come from it and not stay in be stuck. And I feel like any more kids these days, one little thing goes wrong and they can't figure out how to function. And I just hate to see what happens if something catastrophic happens to them and how they, handle it. But so anyway, we've done that too. But
that's pretty powerful, and I'm sure that's a great way just to get the athletes, and just that message you just sent, I think is huge. And I guess I want to go back real quick to the hosting the meets. I'm pretty ignorant to how that works. So, I mean, what, from a facilities perspective, what do you need to host something like that? Do you just need the space, or do you have to have all the platforms and racks, or can they bring that in? I mean, what do you need to host something like that?
Yeah, for our situation, we're able to use our weight room as the warm-up room.
Okay.
And the only negative to that is that we have it's kind of a long haul to get to the gym, as far as like normally at weightlifting meets, you're right there. So you have to have like 2 sets of cards, walkie-talkies, communicating back and forth to let the, back room know what's going on. But really, we just need some plywood. You can get Home Depot to donate some plywood, get Tractor Supply to donate some horse stall mats for, for your platforms. And, if you have a good bar and bumpers and you have enough of that equipment, it depends on how big the meet is. One year we had, I think the biggest meet we had was like 180 participants, which was 180, 190, which is pretty big for a 2-platform local weightlifting meet.
Yeah.
Normally it's anywhere from 60 to 100. And so that was a lot to contain, but we did it. And it's really, all you need. I have to coordinate with our volleyball team, because typically we have it around the time that volleyball is in session. At least in the fall and spring, we have to kind of coordinate with basketball. But that's pretty much
cool.
all you need.
Yeah, cool. Because we got some space where I'm at, and I think that's something that we might be able to look into. But again, never really been around it much. So just kind of curious on how that works. So that's perfect.
Yeah. You let me know. I can help you.
Yeah, sounds good. So I know you're understaffed, obviously, and your facilities probably isn't huge. So there's a lot of hurdles I'm sure you've had to cross to train the teams you train and the amount of athletes. So what are maybe some of those tough hurdles you have, and how do you overcome those challenges?
It is tough when there's limited space and staff and time, and I just have to coordinate, with the coaching, all the sport coaches, and they're pretty good on being flexible and trying to figure out how we can get, a couple teams in at one time. And sometimes we have to utilize the hall. I have to maybe create the workout to where it's timed, to where I have one team out in the hall getting started while, one team's finishing up in the weight room. And so it takes a lot of, thinking through how things are going to go. Sometimes they go as good in my head, but sometimes they don't. And it's a big old melting pot of who knows what's going on at one time. But most of our athletes are pretty good at knowing, what to do and taking care of it. Or I try to get a leader from the team to say, hey, this is going on. Can you help me here? Because if I don't have an intern, like, what else am I supposed to do?
Right.
I make it work for what I have. And most of the teams are pretty understanding. Sometimes they're not. And they're like, we want the whole place to ourselves. And I'm like, too bad. Suck it up.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, but we're making it work. And, I teach USA weightlifting level 1 and level 2 coaching courses. And so a lot of times I can get interns from those courses, or, KU, I've got to deal with KU, or I can potentially get interns from them. So I find different ways to get interns that might have an idea of what's going on, or we have a federal work study program here at MidAmerica, and so I try to hire, if the government's going to pay them, I'm like, okay, I'll use you and try to get ones that have an idea of what's going on in the weight room, or that's
right.
something, if they want to pursue strength and conditioning or personal training, I try to help develop them in that regard, as well as helping me out. So yeah, that's how I make it work.
Yeah, the whole logistics of making it all work is where we ran into we had a big time melting pot this morning. Actually, with our groups, we had 4 different teams. It was kind of a mess, but we'll figure it out, and that's all. We'll be better next time for it. So
yeah, and sometimes you don't know until you think it'll be okay, and then but then you kind of have an idea of how it should go next time.
Yep. We got it fixed now, so things just didn't time up right, and then it happens, and we try to get our athletes to, like, hey, just be patient for a second. We'll get you where you need to be, but when it's time to go, I need 100% effort at it.
Ready.
Just be patient. Yeah, absolutely. So,
yep.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit of training. So, what is your training philosophy?
I feel like training on your own 2 feet, excuse me, exploding every chance you can, and trying to be in the most athletic positions possible, I think are what's going to make our athletes better. I think that when you are limited on your resources and things, and even if you're not, I really feel like that should be a foundation of what you do in programs. And I feel like, the rest will kind of fall into place. I know obviously we got to program appropriately for each sport, but that's really kind of where I stand. And a lot of times I feel like athletes come in and they're pretty, they come in with an injury, or they don't know that they have, deficiencies. And so even just correcting those things is going to make a huge difference, So that's really kind of where I hang my hat on it, is just making sure that they're, doing the right things, exploding, learning how to land properly, and doing plenty of prehab things to help keep them healthy. As far as following a particular training program, I like playing around with different things. I enjoyed doing the APRE method for a little bit, and so I do different things with different sports sometimes to see what works, and sometimes I try to mix in some, kind of CrossFit-y type things, just because I think they enjoy some of that competition part of it,
Yeah.
And so I don't go full bore, CrossFit all the time, but I like throwing those things in, because I think then they also kind of feel like they're really burning, and I don't know, maybe that's just me, but so yeah, that's, I guess, kind of where I'm at on programming.
So you mentioned you do the USA weightlifting. So are you doing a lot of Olympic type style lifting with a lot of your teams, or is it kind of hit and miss based off the sport? How do you kind of differentiate there?
Yeah, I really, each team is doing some sort of Olympic lift.
Okay.
And, it kind of depends on what what sport it is, and honestly, even like their abilities. I feel like sometimes like men's basketball isn't quite ready for some of the things that have women's basketball do.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes their willingness to do things, and maybe this is, bad, but I'm like, okay, I'm not going to try to push this because we'll just stick with, doing cleans and not do snatches. And, because of their mobility or, throwing or hitting athletes, I try to not do too much overhead, but I still feel like it's an important aspect that they've got to be able to stabilize.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Gotcha.
And with football, it's brand new. So I'm, slowly progressing them into doing more Olympic stuff.
Gotcha.
Well,
yeah,
we
I'm
didn't
just
jump
curious.
right into
Yeah,
clean.
that's perfect. That's perfect. I was just curious kind of how you structured that, because I know everybody's a little different. And and you kind of mentioned there that maybe some teams aren't ready for certain things. Do you have like a level system to where you're progressing athletes from like a base level to more advanced? Kind of how do you do that?
Yeah, so I, with any of the new ones, anybody new coming in, whether they're transferring, freshmen, it doesn't matter. I know some of them get so irritated, but I'm like, I do not care. Prove to me that you can handle doing X, Y, and Z, and then I will consider, letting you move on. And, I start all the newbies out. I've got this level 1 sheet that's basic movements. It's, just can they handle moving the stick, in a certain way. If it's like a muscle snatch or overhead squat, and if they're doing well, okay, you can do the same, exercises that we've been progressing you with, but try to handle a little bit more weight and kind of progress them that way. If it's somebody that, if they've really got it figured out, I'll just put them in with the rest of the team so they don't feel like they're completely segregated. But, if they're progressing and doing well, sometimes it just kind of depends on the situation. I'll let them do this, same type of things that the rest of the team's doing, but, tweak it a little bit.
Right.
Because I don't want them to feel like they're completely alienated the whole time. And if they're really bad, then she bad. It's gonna have to be that way.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
All right. So what are you excited about learning and improving on in the next year as a coach?
I really feel like I need to do more, like finding ways to be more competitive based in the weight room, and finding different things will build even more teamwork. Feel like I need to do a little better job with that. Or if I have an idea and I think, oh man, this will be great, and we do it, but it's fun, but it's not in a competitive way,
Right.
So finding different ways to compete with each other. Because I tend to be like, oh, but they lost, but that's, I just feel bad for the loser, I guess. So, or it didn't go quite like I wanted it to, or, finding ways to where they can't cheat either. And then I have to make the decision. I don't like that.
Yeah.
So, and just, seeking out different programs. I like to see what other people are doing and see what works for them. And because I don't think one set program works for every single person. I think, you got to look at your type of athlete you're working with and what you have in your facility. So,
right.
But yeah.
And the competitiveness side of it is something that we really tried to get after too. And something we started just recently was doing like 6-week long competitions with teams. We break an individual team up into smaller teams. So our basketball's 3 teams of 4 or 5, and we do like a 6-week long competition where we just keep the points tallied across the 6 weeks, and we just do simple stuff like plank for time or max push-ups, or we'll do a sled push relay or something. and or a trap bar carry for distance we did today.
Yeah.
To where the athletes can kind of keep that competitive vibe going, and they get into it. They're always asking what the standings are and stuff. So I don't know. It might be, but it is hard because it comes down. There's
points and stuff.
The points and everything, and there's one of you, and trying to do that with a lot of teams. It can be tough, but we've had some pretty good success with it so far. But it can be really easy to get kind of too carried away with it and not follow through with it like you need to probably. But anyway, we've done some things like that might be a good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been good so far. All right.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah. So the last question here before we get to our finisher is, what are some of your favorite professional development resources?
I do like the SCCA. I feel like they put out some good information on their website, and I enjoy their conferences and things. I think even just talking to different strength coaches and seeing how they do things, I think is pretty helpful. And even going to their facilities to see how they even just operate. And some of the NSCA journals and things like that, and I think that's helpful. And if you get, a good following or a good, couple people that you can follow and see some of their videos and trainings. I don't have anybody off the top of my head, but I just like getting new ideas from people and to keep things fresh and so don't feel like we're doing redundant things. I think that's important. So, yeah. Well, and my interns find some really good articles to check out. I'm like, all right, you guys give me some things that you like, and I'll read it. Sure.
Let them do the work for you.
They can do the research. Yep.
Exactly. That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Coach. Well, it's been awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. So let's wrap it up. I just got 4 quick questions for you, and we'll close it up. Sound good?
All right.
All right. So, what is your favorite office snack?
Probably mixed nut.
Nice. I've got that in my office as well. It's a good one.
Yeah. Love that.
Favorite caffeine source, if you're a caffeine drinker?
I do like my caffeine. I do like coffee. And my interns this semester have encouraged me to put a pot in my office.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, you got 15 minutes. Yeah. You got 15 minutes to train for yourself or work out. What are you doing?
Probably jump rope, maybe some dumbbell cleans, some burpees, and some sort of abs plank or something. Nice. My back tends to bother me, so anything I can do for prehab stuff for my back is going to be a good thing.
Nice, that's solid.
Yeah.
All right, last one. A small school strength coach who's does a really good job that deserves a shout out.
Ooh. I think, let's see. I mean, locally, I think Brian Stylick over at Stylick, I butcher his name, over at Avila. He does a great job. He was at Park University before, and he does a really good job.
Yeah, he does. He's actually been on the show as well, so he does a really good job. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
All right, Coach. Well, this has been great, and I again really appreciate you coming on and taking your time, because I know you're busy, and taking the time to talk with us has been great. So we will put your email and stuff up on the show notes. So if people want to get a hold of you, they can reach out to you. But good luck with everything this fall, and again, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, same to you, and I'll have to pick your brain for some of those competition things. I'll definitely check into that. So I appreciate the time, and thanks again for having me.